Hello, my name is John Carroll. I'm the Superintendent of Schools in the Lagunitas School District in Marin County, California. Today we're talking about school funding. When you send your child to school, do you ever wonder where the money comes from to pay for that school and all the people in it? Well, today we're going to talk about that. It's a fairly complex system in California with lots of little pieces and little things to think about, but the most basic part of it is not very hard to understand, and today we're going to dig into that a little bit. If it sounds dry to you, give me a moment. You might find that it's more interesting than you think. So let's get started. Let's start out with an oversimplification. California guarantees about $7,300 per student per year. So if you're a kid in California, your school, if you show up there, is going to get about that much money. The first thing you should notice about that is it's not very much. Our per pupil funding in California is pretty bad. I thought this would be the simplest way to explain it. Let's pretend for a moment that this jar is your local school district, and it's going to be filled up with the funding necessary to run the school where your children attend. And the way it works like this is it starts with local property taxes. So the people who own property in your area, and this could be private individuals, companies, whatever, anyone who pays property tax pays into that, and then that goes into filling up what is needed to run the school. Let's see what happens. So we fill that up. Uh-oh. In some cases, local property taxes are not enough to fill the bucket to run the school. So what do we do if every child is guaranteed about $7,300 for their education in a year? Well, here's what happens next. If local property taxes are not enough to fill the bucket up to the guaranteed funding level for every student, what happens is the state of California comes in and it tops off the amount of funding right at that level. And that's called local control funding formula. So that way every student in California has a guaranteed minimum. There's been a change in California over the last few years too with the local control funding formula, and to me this is very encouraging. The state recognizes that some students require more resources than others to get the same outcomes. And so for the first time, I think in the state's history, extra money is following certain types of students if they fall into certain types of categories. There are three. The first one is free and reduced lunch students. The second is English language learners. And the third is kids from the foster care system. So extra dollars follow those kids. So we're back here at our school district. We're looking at our LCFF funding level, and we are adding more money based on kids who are in the foster care system. We are adding a little bit more money for every single student who is an English language learner. And lastly, we are adding more money for kids who are on the free and reduced lunch program. Now, if the entire state were funded that way, it would probably be pretty easy to understand. But there's a second system in place that funds schools differently, and here's how that works. It's known as basic aid. The actual official term is now locally funded. And that means it's a district that's completely locally funded through its own property taxes. And here's when that happens. You have your local property taxes. They get poured into your school district. Here they come. There they go. Taxpayer dollars. Thank you very much. Hard-earned money from our local taxpayers. And they go right up to that level of $7,300 per student. What that means now is that the state is not obligated to provide any more money to that school district. It's funded on its own. Now, when you see that local property taxes fill up to a certain level and that the school is self-funding from there on, you might think that that's not very fair. But in the vast majority of cases, it's actually a good thing, and I'll show you why. In most higher wealth areas, the local property taxes are much more than they are in low wealth areas. That just stands to reason. So what happens with a basic aid school district, most of the time, but not all of the time, it gets to its level of about $7,300 per student per year, and there's more left in local property taxes. The district gets to keep everything that's left. Sometimes, what if it fills up all the way and there's still more? Then we gotta run over here and get a plate, or something else, put it under, and we keep filling. Now, in that last shot, when you saw all that funding overflowing and the school district getting to keep it all, you might think it's great to be a basic aid school district, and in a lot of cases it is great. In Lagunitas, it's not quite as great as you might think. If you look at our local property taxes, we're not a gigantically, enormously wealthy area, but we're not a super poor area either compared to some places. So when we look at our local property taxes, we hit basic aid, so we get to keep all the money that we have. There's not a whole lot more. Now, if you look around at some schools in California, you will see that some appear to be better funded than others, and that's because they are. There are some school districts that, because of their basic aid status and a strong property tax base, just have more money to spend on each student. We have here in Lagunitas basic aid funding. We get to keep all of our property taxes, but it's not going to be as much as it is in some places. So we have to make sure that we use that money appropriately to serve the needs of all of our children. There's a child now.
Hey, I think that's pretty fun.
Thank you very much for watching this first in the series of videos on school funding. In the next video, we're going to talk about how that money goes from being inside those jars to actually providing for the needs of our local students. So tune into the next one. As soon as I have it made, I will post it. And thanks again for watching.